Now this one, I'm worried that I'm not going to go into enough detail with certain things and I'll miss things. So I might go round and round with this. But, okay. So there's this thing called passing. And you may kind of understand it just based on like the name alone. But it's essentially like if a trans woman, how close she like can be to a cis woman, or a trans man to a cis man. And there's pressure to do this on so many different levels, and as a transgender woman, I feel that pressure every day, and I also apply it to myself. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why I just didn't take the plunge sooner and like really evaluate my life and myself and figure out who I am. Because, let's face it, guys, I don't look anything like a woman. And that's really upsetting for me. But that was a really big reason why I didn't start transitioning sooner. It was other people are so pretty, and like their glow-ups are amazing, and that would never happen to me. That could never happen for me. So it was just always like something that I knew I couldn't do, and it was more so that I didn't try. And part of that is also kind of like a bit of internalized transphobia. But like passing happens. It can be physical, it can be social, it can be sexual, it can be other kinds of things too. A friend of mine explained kind of transitioning in a really cool way to me. Like if there was a country that was gender, and say you're like a binary trans woman, which I'm more so that. But then there's also like non-binary trans women who are mostly women, but also not quite. And that alone, there's a lot of pressure on non-binary people too, to like make a decision and be this or be that. But I'm starting to get off topic. Where am I? I don't know. Anyway, their example that they used was like, you're taking a train from one side of the gender to the other, and you can stop any time on your journey. You can go all the way to the other side. Oh, excuse me. Or you can just do a couple of things and find a nice place to just kind of be yourself. Or you can even go really far and then come back a little bit. Or back all the way, for those that realize that actually transitioning isn't for them. And that's part of like a self-discovery thing, that individual, it's an individual thing that they would have to go through if that's for them. And for me, I actually like made an ultimatum for myself, and it was my voice. And wow, listening to myself from like months ago, and how not at all like a woman I sounded, and thinking, oh wow, I sound like a woman. It's just, I think I've been training my ears better. But anyway, that's beside the point. point is, I knew that even if I were able to dress and act and do all these things like a woman, that if my voice just didn't work, then it would all fall apart and I wouldn't, or I couldn't be accepted for who I am. And I think people actually exist like that. Like even on the far extreme of the transgender community. And I think they're called trans meds. And basically they're like, oh, well, you're not trans unless you take HRT. Or you're not trans unless you get sexual reassignment surgery. Or you're not trans unless you get facial feminization surgery. Or you're not trans unless you have, a feminine voice and mannerisms and all that. And part of like being trans and also non-binary is discovering like who you really are and how you want to be treated and how people interact with you in society. Like, most of us are sort of running away from the little box that we were put in to be like our birth gender. And the problem is that then most of us like end up sort of taking that little prison and then putting ourselves in another prison that's just maybe prettier or something. But what's really important is that if you're a trans person, that you just explore what things about or what things you feel like are about that gender or about like who you are and what you like, that you want to express yourself. And therein lies another problem. Sorry. Passing is all about being accepted by yourself and by others. And sometimes it's a lot harder to be accepted by yourself than others. And that alone makes you sort of doubt how other people are treating you or acting towards you. And based on like the interactions that I've had with my wife's family and people that I know in real life, I definitely get that. Like, when I explain, maybe not in the best detail, sort of how I came to the realization and what I went through, and when I reflected on my life that I'm transgender, people are like, oh, and it doesn't really click. And that's part of passing. Like, if you look like a sailor, big old tough man, and you have a really deep voice, and you're like, you know what, I'm actually a woman. Like, people just want to laugh at you. And it's not a laughing matter, but the problem is that I'm kind of getting off topic again, but like in media and things, like cross-dressing in that sense, which is a precursor to being transgender, for a lot of us, because that's like when we first have that like feeling of being connected with who we actually are and not feeling like just disconnected, dysphoria. But like it's the butt of jokes. Like they purposely like over-masculate to make a point that like no man should ever dress like this or be this or whatever. And considering how there's actually been quite a bit of history even before the Stonewall riots and things with people being transgender, like, I guess it sort of makes sense that people would just try to push us down. But, anyway, going back to what I said about people that I've interacted with in my life. And then once I used my voice, it was like, oh, you are, or you're serious. But up till that point, like, people will just disapprove whatever you're doing. Like, it's also really hard because for some transgender people, like, they were raised maybe, or raised socially as like gay men, or like really effeminate men or something. And they were already like aware of makeup and fashion and things like that. And for others, it's the complete opposite. And they have like no idea what they're doing. So they're stumbling over everything, and that's really kind of where I am. I'm like stumbling over every single thing. And it's really hard on yourself, because like you want to be accepted as your gender, and you first have to be able to accept yourself, maybe. But like so much of it, so many of us are caught up in that once I'm on HRT, or once I do this, or once I do that, or at least that's my case. Like, right now, before I started transitioning, I would look at myself in the mirror, and not very often, mind you, I hated mirrors, and I didn't really care so much. I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm not good looking or anything. It's not a big deal. But now it's like a freak. Like, I'm really afraid of what I might try to do to myself, or what I feel like I need to do to pass. I have this really big fear that, like, I'll be in a social circle, and maybe everyone's treating me like a woman. I don't really know how that even feels. And then I do something that's very unladylike, and it all kind of like crashes down on me. And it's like people have to wake up and be like, oh, that's right, you're not a woman. And it's just like, I guess they're right. And that's really hard. And I really don't like want to accuse anyone that is my friend, or that I really love, to like having some of these tendencies. But I do think that people would be much less accepting of me if I wasn't so like loving and bubbly, and like just energetic and wanting to talk and do all that stuff. And that's something that a lot of trans people go through. I have a friend, in fact, that is a very, very different kind of trans woman than me. And she is wanting to be more like a bodybuilder type, which, like, I want all my muscles gone. And women can have muscles. Like, that's not, it's more seen as a masculine thing because, like, I don't know why. I didn't really think about that. But that's not the point. The point is that she's a woman too. And people, they won't see that. They can't see that. And it's like you're always walking on eggshells now. And even, especially for me with doing like my Let's Play, and just because everything is so new to me, it's like an act. But it's not an act. This is actually who I am. This is who I am. But because I have 30 years of being something else, of living something else, and I'm trying to... I need a drink. And I'm trying to learn and understand what are the things that make me me. What are the things that I care about? What are the things that are gender affirming for me? And there's lots of ways that can happen. Like, it can be wearing a bra, or wearing women's clothes, or wearing makeup, or like having long hair, something as simple as that, or painting your nails, or just wearing women's underwear, or tucking. And I don't think I went over tucking, so I'll talk about that next time, I guess. Some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. But, and it's kind of like an experiment to see, you know, what things I like. But the problem is, because of that pressure to pass, to be accepted as my gender, that I, it's like I try to be as much as a cis woman as I possibly can without actually knowing how to do that. And so that's where, like, the whole 9 yards comes from. Oh, excuse me. Dressing, tucking, mannerisms, walking, having the right kind of I guess, like, speech patterns, or inflections in your voice when you talk. And that's also another thing that's kind of hard to pick up, but at the same time, like, a lot of women now are more like kind of monotone, which is what men typically are. As they don't really put like emphasis on words or anything like that. And I have a feeling that quite a bit of this, I've just been kind of going monotone sometimes. But that's something that just comes with time. But, like, the first couple of times I went out and I was trying to really put myself out there, I am sorry that this is really long. Really, I am. I'm so sorry. I wish I wasn't so long-winded. But, I would wear women's clothes and, like, have my breasts and then be misgendered by people. And I'd wonder, what is it that's causing that? What is that, like, doing? And then that's when I'd be like, well, what if I do this? Will I get gendered correctly then? And what if I do this? And what if I do this? Before you know it, that's putting myself back in that prison. That's me putting up another bar of this is what I have to be in order to be myself. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of things that I really, really enjoy doing that I'm not very good at. So I don't really think that I'm quite in, like, my own prison, or at least maybe I'm rationalizing that I'm not doing that to myself. But sometimes I also get really concerned because of my age. I know the younger that you are, the better chance you have at passing, and the more that hormones will be able to change your body. And there's always that fear of, like, was this just too late, too little too late? And what kind of changes are really gonna happen? And it's hard to know because, again, hormones are kind of crazy. It's a long process. There's a lot of, your mileage may vary, and it's only been a week. But, like, going back to that whole in an act sense, that could be, like, in a social circle, or it could be in a professional setting. And it's like, God damn it. It's like, once I fail to be perfect at what I'm trying to be, then people are just like, well, like I said before, like, oh, you're not a woman. But in another sense, it's almost like, gotcha, knew you were wrong about yourself. And that's always really, really hurtful and painful. And trans people deal with it all the time, every day. And kind of in a bit more, I guess, TMI setting or something. Like, I think that John is more kind of like asexual. And myself, I am a bit more of kind of like a nymphomaniac. And part of that's just because, like, I haven't been able to experience that as a woman. And it's really kind of driving me crazy. And without my knowledge, it's been building in the back of my mind. But I have never been that way. I have never been expected to be anything. I know what I want to be, and I want to be accepted as that. But I can't even accept myself as that right now. And it's like, fuck, I'm so sorry. I might be in the middle of something intimate with someone, and this time I make one of those mistakes, like I was saying in the social circle. And it's like, oh, you aren't a woman. I'm not being intimate with a woman right now. I'm being intimate with a man that's like kind of feminine, I guess. And that's really soul crushing and terrifying. And I've actually asked one of the people that I've been like wanting to be more intimate with, like, do you like me because I'm transgender, or would you prefer me as cis? And before anyone answers that question, it's a loaded question. Don't answer it either way. It's bad. And the truth is if they love you and if they appreciate you and like show affection, it doesn't matter if they see you as trans or they see you as cis, because you're still a woman and they're still like showing what you want them to show. That is, in most cases, there are like sort of perverts that I luckily haven't had to deal with. But that'll definitely be another topic for another day. And it's really hard on the whole passing thing because, and this is another reason, again, I just can't stop talking. I keep thinking of these things and they just take forever to say them. So, my genitals have never really been a huge source of dysphoria for me. Though I was and am extremely happy whenever like I can look down and I can feel myself and it's just smooth. Like there's nothing there. And but a while ago I looked down and instead of my usual just I don't like it and it's kind of annoying, it was like, this feels like a foreign object attached to my body. And that's a scary thought because a lot of what I do and who I am and how I'm okay with the way that my transition is progressing is that I understand that I don't look cis. I may not act cis. And I'm okay with being trans and people knowing I'm trans. Not every trans person is that way. They don't like the idea of being trans. They want to just be cis. And that's one of the reasons why I've been okay not wanting sexual reassignment surgery. Because in the back of my mind, I always felt like I'd never be cis enough. So actually had vagina. Then I'd really have to pass. And if I couldn't do that, I would just be like a lesser woman, like an imitation, like a substitution. And now I'm afraid that I will feel that I'll need facial feminization surgery. And that's scary all its own. There's a lot of risk with any kind of surgery. Facial feminization surgery is very, very expensive, and there's a long, long waiting list. And if I can't be okay with how I look and how I'm developing, there's no guarantee that after surgery I'll be content, that I'll be happy. I didn't think that things would get so heavy. But before I switch topics, there's actually been a news story or a viral video going around that I haven't seen personally, but I've seen lots of comments, and not the toxic ones. I'm afraid to look at those. But it's of a trans woman in GameStop that gets misgendered, and then she reacts negatively to it, and I guess tries to like assault the clerk. And this is one of those cases where people that are transphobes, that are against transgender people, or are just not necessarily transphobes, but they're on the fence, and now they've been pushed to the other side, see this kind of stuff, and then put that on all of us. And they make things like, this wouldn't have happened if she passed. Thankfully, I don't really seem to get misgendered at least not on purpose. And what I mean by that is that I know I don't look like a woman, and I used to try to, when I go through like drive-throughs, to use my voice, but it usually had kind of like a negative feeling. So now, whenever I'm in drive-throughs, at least until I feel like, I don't know, my face is good enough or whatever, then I just use my old voice. And one sec. Because of the pressure of passing, a lot of trans people are really, really afraid to show themselves to the public, to be their true selves, to come out at all. I've talked to and I've seen women that are amazing and beautiful and would pass 100%, and they're afraid to even walk out of their house in makeup and things. And maybe the way that I did it was not the best way, but I started socially transitioning first before everything else. Once I knew, and once I started dressing, I just lived it. And I am myself when I'm at work. But because of passing and things like that, I can't do it unless I cover my face. So let me get the other loop. Even shaved, and I don't think that this is going to come through the audio very well, but even shaved, this is how I look every single day. And it's kind of like a security blanket. Because I have more confidence that I can pass when people can't see my face. And while we're at it, last but not least, one of the notes I actually wrote in here before I went on so many tangents. There's a lot of like empowering hashtags that get passed around the transgender community. And like, I always want to be a part of that. Like, I want to be able to show selfies and things like that. But I know, I just know that I don't pass at all. I don't. And it's hard to even think that people would want to treat me as a woman in social circles. And especially sexually. A recent one was trans girls in front of Christmas trees. And I really wanted to be a part of it. But I don't pass. And I don't know what I will. And I don't know if I'm okay with that. I'm gonna take another drink.